Hey everybody, we're going to do a quick run through of the lesson 9.3 composition on ZooPlanner. So ZooPlanner, when I approach these coding challenges, the way that I always approach them, no matter what they are, what lesson they're in, step one is I'm going to read thoroughly the instruction practice panel. So the problem says when planning a trip to the zoo, it can be helpful to know what time of day the favorite animals will be active. Create a class with a method to see a string of animals that are active during the user selected time. Our requirements say that we must create a zoo class with an init method that takes a list of animals as parameter. That means that the animals are already going to be created, that list is going to be passed in, and I need a place to put it. The zoo class must include a visit method that takes a time parameter and returns the string of active animals at that time. Then we have some test cases, so if the user were to type in morning, the output would be expected to be, these are the animals you may see, Geronimo the gorilla, Romeo the gorilla, Elizabeth the penguin, and so on. And then likewise, if they put night, then what they would be expected to see is a different set of animals. Okay. And then the second thing that I always do is I go up to the run solution. I can't get back to, there we go, run solution. And I just take a look at what we get and see what my inputs and outputs are. So it says, when are you planning to visit the zoo? And it tells them the choices are morning, day, and night. So we're going to type in one of those as a day, and then immediately I get the list. So the input and output seems fairly simple. And then the last thing I do is I take a minute, especially in these multi-file operations, I take a minute to explore what I'm given and what I'm not. So I'm going to go ahead and close that assignment panel so we get a little more room. And the Zoo Planner is the main run file. So it's reading the CSV file of the animals. So this is the animals that it's going to read in. It's going to store those as a list. So that's being done for me here in this ZooPlanner. So I don't have to worry about parsing the file input. It's already here. Okay, so we're going to go through that animals, and we're building an empty list of zoo animals, and we're filling it up. And each zoo animal, when it's being created, we notice that it's using the animals constructor. So I am creating a class instance of animal by passing it the name, the animal name, and the time that it's active, either morning, day, or night. And then I create my zoo. Here's my zoo constructor. So I need to take a look at both animal and zoo and see how they work. So we'll start with animal. We're not asked to do anything with animal. It wasn't part of the instructions, but we need to kind of understand what it is that we're being given because it is the component class of the composite for zoo. So in order to create the animal, it passed in those three things. So now we have access to those, but not directly. Notice they have that private variable. So I should not be accessing animal._name inside my zoo. That would be bad coding syntax and ignoring the meaning of that underscore. But instead I have a property getter method that will say self._name plus the, and then so that's like Bunzai the gorilla or whatever the names were. So it's going to return that if I just ask for animal.description. And I don't use the parentheses because it's a property. Okay, so the parentheses aren't needed. So then I go to my zoo, and this is the one that's empty. This is the one I have to write. So I'm going to go back to my instructions and now begin. So we'll close that project window and give us a little more room. Okay, create a zoo class with an init method. So the first thing I'm going to do to create the zoo class is use the class keyword, class, and then it's zoo. Okay, the init method, it says it must take a list of animals as a parameter. So I'm going to define that in init, define init. The first parameter is always self, and then the second parameter says it's going to be a list of animals. And we can call that here in the parameter in the argument list and call it anything we want, but might as well go with animals. And the zoo class must include a visit. We'll get to that in a minute. So we're going to save those off as attributes of the zoo. So we know animals is a list. So I'll say self.animals equals animals. And now I'll have access as a instance variable or an attribute of the zoo, I can say zoo.animals and get to that list once they've been added to the zoo. The zoo class must include a visit method, so we're going to define that method. Define visit self and a time. And it returns a string of the active animals. A string of active animals. And that string should probably be separated using the /n, because I notice when it prints that it prints each one of them on a new line. So I'll say active equals nothing. And then I'm going to loop through animals for animal in self.animals. And then I have this time, which is going to be morning, day, or night. And if I go back and I look at my animals class, the animal class has a time variable. Now, unfortunately, I'm going to have to violate some bad coding principles here because they made that a private variable, but they did not give me. So I can do two things here. I can do a getter. I can change the animal class, which would be better. At property, define time, self, return self dot underscore time. So that would be the best solution to not violate that principle of encapsulation, would be to go ahead and add that property, even though the instructions didn't tell me to do that. But I need to be able to compare that time. Okay, so we're going to come back here to my zoo. Say for every animal in self.animals, if animal.time is the same thing as my time that's being passed to me, then active plus equals animal.description. Now let me go take another look at that description and see if the return is added to that so that I don't end up adding a double return. So we got name, so Geronimo the gorilla, the \n is not part of that description, so I need to make sure that I add that to my plus. \n is a string literal. And then at the end of that visit, I'm going to return active. Okay, so we're not printing. It says here that it must return the string of active animals. So now I can go back into my ZooPlanner and I can run it. Oh, fix my spelling error. I just have a spelling error here. I said decryption instead of description. So, run my ZooPlanner again. Night. And there we go. I get Gimbasis the hippopotamus, Vortigen the kangaroo, Zeus the hippopotamus, and I can compare that if I want with my expected output. So I get a hippo and a lion at the top and the bottom. Night, I get a hippo at the top and a lion in the bottom. We are good to go. And that's it for the ZooPlanner. Again, read your requirements. Take a minute to digest the files that are given to you. Run their solution, and then generate your own code.